नित्यानंदा श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निधि नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशधारिणे नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते देवदागस्वामिन्निधि नामिने मम आचार्यपादाय निताय कृपाप्रदायिने गौरगदाधमदया नगरग्रामतारिणे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. So I'll start with the permission from all the Vaishnavas. So we are continuing with this beautiful journey of Srimad Bhagavatam. So last session we heard from His Grace Shankamani Prabhuji, very beautiful class where we started with the story or the allegory of King Puranjana. And in the beginning we understood many parts where Prabhuji took a very beautiful class. So here we are continuing with the next chapter, which is chapter 26. And this is covered in one more chapter also. So this chapter is the heading of the chapter is King Puranjana goes to the forest to hunt and his queen becomes angry. So in a way, the way we can understand here is how the conditioned soul, when it abandons spiritual knowledge or spiritual intelligence, and how quickly the conditioned soul falls into lust and complete forgetfulness of Krishna. That is the explanation which is given in this chapter. So, like Srila Prabhupada always says, all the conditioned souls in this material world, they are every day in their struggle for existence. Just to exist, just to be living in this world is a struggle for whether it is animals or birds or any living being, including human beings. It's a huge struggle. Like we can see in this picture, all of us struggle hard like this to somehow exist here, and this is happening all because we have forgotten our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And here we can see the this chapter or these sessions about King Puranjana coming almost like a story. So it is not just a story or a allegory as it is mentioned, but it is really mirroring our life itself. So that's a beautiful part of it. So when I was going through this chapter, I realized it's very much talking about my life. So because in the beginning, when we listen to the story, you may look at it as a very interesting and a very different kind of story. But when we go deep into the purports, especially written by Srila Prabhupada, it's not so difficult to understand it. It is, in a way, one's own story. So here we'll try to cover a few points. So what is the context of this allegory itself? And a very short summary, although Prabhuji took the chapter so beautifully, we try to just remember what was the contents in a very short way. And then we go look into the introduction of the chapter and the storyline. And what is the meaning of this story itself? We try to cover one or two important slokas here. And then also looking at some pastimes of the Lord or his devotees, which all of us know very well, how these pastimes, show us a diametrically opposite vision. When the conditioned soul is limited to one's lower focus on our lower interest, how it gets bewildered. And at the same time, how the Supreme Lord in different incarnations shown or in different pastimes of him shown, the total different approach in the material, although he appeared in this material world, and also his devotees showed the same way by having total devotion to the Lord. So this we understand. And then messages from our acharyas, mainly Srila Prabhupada, and a few practical lessons. So this is what I will try to cover in this session. So where are we in the Canto 4 at the moment? This narration of the story of King Puranjana is spoken by Sri Narada Muni to King Prachina Bhakshit. This we understood or this we heard in the previous class also. So Narada is teaching through the story of King Puranjana. So the effort of Narada, because generally when the conditions soul is completely in this material life, it's very difficult. Like in the preaching efforts we do, or our senior devotees do, time to time, we can see that it's extremely difficult to preach to a person who is only connected with this conditioned world, and who has difficulty in understanding the subject of spiritual matters. So generally, when you talk about the Lord, Supreme Lord, devotees, or Krishna, they'll find it very difficult to understand. So many times it is easy to make people understand through stories. And here, say Narada Muni is using the same tactics to make King Prachina Parshit understand, how he has got condition, how he is only focusing on many karmic activities for sense gratification through this story. So the through this story, the journey of the conditioned soul in this material world is explained, and the bodily consciousness, how the mind or intelligence of a person who is completely fallen into consciousness of this material world only works, how he or she is only focused on sense enjoyment, and then finally, what is the danger here? Because we are forgetting the Lord. So these are explained in this chapter. So, as we all understand now, Puranjana is not, or the story of Puranjana is not just about his life as mentioned here, but it has much deeper meaning. And it represents, in a way, all of us, especially personalities like me, who are very much in this conditioned life. And then this is a story very beautifully framed by Narada, where he is speaking to King Prahinabajas, as we already saw. So, a quick summary about the previous chapter, which we have already seen. So in the previous chapter, we understood that King Puranjana was wandering in search of suitable for place for enjoyment or sense enjoyment. So this Shangamani Purji very beautifully explained how conditioned life is always looking for more and more material enjoyment or comfort. Although hopefully many of us, people like me, after coming to Krishna consciousness, we got a lot of at least theoretical understanding how it is important to focus our life on the Supreme Lord, as well as stay in the association of devotees, etc. And many times I realize that although it is on there at the back of the mind, but we because of our natural conditioning, we are always looking for some kind of a comfort in this material world. We look for better places. So I was reflecting on myself, how I started my journey of life from my village in a small place down south, and then moved across many places in the country. So in the normal pursuit of our life, we don't realize it at all. But this story is helping us to reflect how we are looking for a one-way sense enjoyment only because we want more money, we want more comfort, we want a better house, we want many other things. So same approach. So how beautifully the story reflects, one's own story in this material world. So while he was moving around, what happens is he finds a very beautiful city, like many of us, discovers. So here this particular city is explained as a city with 9 gates. And like we heard in the previous class, it is nothing but this beautiful. So these conditions all is entering into our body, and then it is in the pursuit of going through many sense enjoyments. Then in this effort, he is meeting a beautiful woman. That means the beautiful woman is representing here the material intelligence. So it is not spiritual intelligence. So the material intelligence or the material buddhi is symbolized by the beautiful woman here. Like we all understand, once the soul enters into the material body and then starts growing with age, the material intelligence grows more and more strong with all the learnings we get from the surroundings, from other people, and also, of course, our previous karmas. So the beautiful woman is nothing but the intelligence which is covered by material interest. So then Puranjana becomes attracted and enters deep into the material environment. So with this material knowledge, the entire focus is how to enjoy it, oneself. And then King Puranjana is entering more and more and getting more and more involved. And like Srila Prabhupada mentions, he gets more and more entangled in the material world. So here, the first thing which happens to the conditioned soul is identifying with the material body. With this, we can understand very easily. Once we are very convinced that we are nothing but this body, then naturally our entire focus is only enjoying our senses in various ways by eating, sleeping, mating, defending, etc. Like Srila Prabhupada taught us. And then one thing we are completely accept in this material world is the family-centered attachment. So all of us are generally, especially before coming to the devotional life, we were very, very sure all our energy, all our effort should be spent for the family. I mean, in the past days, at least the family used to be a very larger family, and the enjoyment was not limited to one's own immediate family, but it was with many relatives, etc., etc. But today we all know that how we have become only centric to our own family, probably immediate spouse, and then children, etc. That's all. And everything is about sensual enjoyment. That's all, nothing more than that. Nobody is able to even think beyond that. So in a way, from this 25th chapter, what we understand as an essence is this whole enters the material body and becomes completely captivated by material intelligence, because the material intelligence is controlling. And then finally, the only thing generally we end up doing is sense enjoyment, nothing more than that. So how this is connecting to the coming chapter, which is chapter 26. So previously we understood in the previous chapter that attachment is beginning. So once the soul enters into the material body, the first thing is attachment. And then when we come to this chapter, here we can see further, because of deeper and deeper understanding or attachment to this material body, the soul further goes into deep-rooted lust, and then violence is very naturally part of it. I mean, in the material world today, we can see it may not be physical violence all the time, at least on a mental platform. Many of us, and I was trying to reflect, especially with the corporate life today. Corporates always put in many rules and regulations for people to work, where they do not allow any kind of violence on it. When people coming together, it's very easy to understand, however, how violent they are, on a mental platform. So these things we understand in this chapter, and then it's all happening because of our complete forgetfulness or complete lack of understanding of spiritual life. So chapter 26, as we already saw, it is titled as King Parinjana goes to the forest to hunt, and his queen becomes angry. And again, as we said, the queen representing the material intelligence here. So this is a small chapter with 26 slokas. Although the slokas are limited and not a very big chapter, I mean, once you go through this chapter, it will force us to reflect, or it is kind of showing us mirror, how we are entangled in this material world. So how the conditions all becomes swept away by the lower taste, because generally in the material world nobody understands what is a higher taste. With the blessings, with the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we were very fortunate to at least theoretically look into what is higher taste. And through all his efforts, whether the books written by Srila Prabhupada or the hundreds and thousands of lectures he has given, or the temples he has established across the world, he is trying to bring all of us to a level of higher taste. So then the moment the soul is in a lower taste, he naturally neglects any kind of higher guidance. Because Prabhupada has always mentioned every conditioned soul, especially in the form of human being, we get the chance to understand Lord, because the Lord is trying always through his devotees or in various forms to give some messages to us. But since our interest is already been gone to the low end or the lower end, we generally in the conditioned life find it very difficult to hear this guidance, or the voice of the Lord coming from our heart. Or in a way we neglect it. When we continuously neglect it, that voice becomes feeble and feeble all the time. And then since we are leading a life like this, naturally there is a lust, and then the consciousness is covered, and we end up doing various kind of activities which is violent in behavior. And how and in this journey, one interesting thing we can realize is many times when we are in this kind of a journey where we are completely clouded by lust and other lower energies, there are moments, because of the presence of our Lord inside our heart, we feel regret in a in a temporary way, because we get many tough situations. We fall again and again, And there are moments when even a conditioned soul feel regret. But what happens is, since we are still materially attached in a big way, this regret is very temporary in nature, And then again, our material intelligence will tell us, no, no, nothing to worry. Just get up and run again, because the entire world is doing that. So there is nothing to worry, and then go ahead. So there is a very beautiful story in Mahabharata where King Yudhishthira is asked by his father, Yamadev, about many questions. Actually, that kind of a situation comes in the story. We have all generally heard about it. So one of these questions asked by, or the first question asked by Yamadev is, what is the biggest surprise in this material world? So Yudhishthira Maharaj very beautifully answers that. He says that this entire material world, we can very easily, everybody is seeing that it is very temporary and everybody is dying all the time. But at an individual level, we just ignore it and we believe that I will not die, or at least even if I die, I'm not going to die at least in the another 100 years, or probably more than that. And then we keep on running with our same focus on enjoying the material world. So he says that that's the biggest surprise. So if you look back, all of us can also see, many of our close people left this world, and then we are also seeing the condition of the world today with this war happening in the Middle East. The daily life has become completely unpredictable. Prices of we know that oil, gas going up. Availability of cooking gas become very rare, even affecting our temple. Many of these things we see, but because of the crowded material nature, we just ignore it and continue with our journey of sense enjoyment. So when this all is completely covered from the spiritual knowledge or spiritual intelligence, the senses drag the soul continuously into sinful activities, and our life degrades to a much lower level. So this is the, in a way, essence or a summary of this chapter, and this is discussed in more detail. And because of this, since with the mercy of the Vaishnavas, we are trained now to look back into our own lives. It's quite easy to understand that this is nothing but our lives, and then this will definitely help us to reflect, and with the mercy of all seniors and Srila Prabhupada will be able to come out of it. So, continuing with the chapter, Puranjana here goes for hunting into the forest. So, he leaves home driven by passion. So, and he's heavily armed and proud. So, here again, in material lives, we can see that generally we go out into the world to achieve our ambitions, or like in the modern times, people say that we have to be driven by our passions. This is a general thing. uh, as per Shastras, driven by passion is the most dangerous thing. But we see that the world has accepted in a very open way. The only aim of life is to drive our passion to the fullest extent. And then generally the conditioned soul is also armed heavily. What is he generally the arms which he carries is nothing but the pride in the heart, because the person will be very proud about either his family background or his education. Generally today everything is connected with the material education. If somebody has got educated from a very nice institute like the IIT or IIM or whatever, and if they are only connected to the material life, they feel extremely proud, and they think that they are going to in a way control the whole world, and then enjoy the material life. So in same way, Puranjana is also very proud, and then he's heavily armed with many kind of weapons, and he's going into the forest to kill animals. Generally this whole in this world also we can see that we are going into this material world which is like a forest, and then we are making our killing by finding out many options to satisfy our senses. And naturally, one of the biggest challenge with this pursuit is one becomes very cruel in nature, because we don't have any mercy. And here Puranjana is killing many animals in this pursuit, and he acts under demonic influence. So once our consciousness is not in Krishna, or towards the association with other devotees, demonic nature naturally comes out and completely influenced, and then his compassion is lost. So this is something we can see in the world very easily today. Although the whole teaching in the material world also talks about a lot of very good things, they talk about values when you work in corporates. They'll talk about following principles, but these are all hidden in only one aim called satisfying the senses or making more and more money. So, because of this pursuit, compassion is the first thing which gets lost. And this we can see very easily now when the war is going on in the Middle East. In the olden days, when some wars are going on between two countries, it was not very confusing. One country has certain aim and it is fighting with the other country, and then fight happens. Of course, there's a lot of loss on both sides, and one day fight ends. But here, we see, I mean, all of us are hearing it from social media or other places what is happening in the Middle East. I mean, three countries are involved in fighting and they have many aims. Sometimes we forget to understand who is the enemy of whom. Sometimes I will say that Iran is, together with America actually, and then the actual loss is happening to probably a third country. Many, many, many new, what do you call it, information keep coming in. So because they are all into the influenced by Maya in a strong way, and the world has become so complicated. Today, it's even difficult to understand, what is happening or what is actually the aim of the war. But one thing we can very easily understand is there are individual interests at very top level involved. One person or two persons or three persons think that, I want to control in a complete way, and then this effort to satisfy one's own satisfaction is continuing. And here, what we see is compassion is completely lost. Whether one goes ahead and kills one's own people, because anybody involving in this kind of an activity will have losses on both sides, but nobody is bothered. People are getting killed, lives are lost, people are suffering like anything, but still, with this influence of Maya, they continue with this journey. So, very easy to understand with this analogy from war. So finally, what happens after continuing with this activity of hunting? He is tired. Like in the material world, we all get tired when we work for some time. And then what a material soul or a materially influenced soul wants is material refreshment. So he does not have any knowledge about the Lord or the spiritual focus. So he is completely into material knowledge only. So what he thinks is now he need to get refreshed. Like this world always tells that we should take the best food, or they talk about consuming the best kind of juices or various things they market nowadays. So in the similar way, we enjoy that and take a lot of rest. So he is doing the same thing. He is taking nice bath. He is eating, resting, decorating himself in a good way by putting on many nice clothes, etc., etc. So he's trying this, and instead of understanding what is spiritual life, he just again getting into sensual comfort only, which is again the life of any conditioned soul. So here he is trying to pacify his queen, which is his own intelligence, and he sees she is upset. And here, again, instead of understanding anything related to spiritual life, he flatters her and admits his fault. So that's the interesting part. Like in the material world, when we understand that we are doing some mistakes, since we are still clouded by the material energy, the fault admission is also very temporary in nature. So although the fault is accepted or understood, immediately the material intents will come and say to us that it is all right, you are tired, but now you are refreshed, enjoy more, and then move ahead. So his what do you call it? Consciousness is completely materially centered only. So further meaning of this here, as we heard from Shanwani Prabhu also, King Puranjana is nobody but one soul, Atma or soul. The queen, as we already saw, showing the material intelligence, and the forest where he is going and entering is nothing but the field of our sense enjoyment, where we are only into eating, mating, sleeping, etc. That's all. And hunting is nothing but how to engage in this material energy more and more to one's own satisfaction, where we don't, shy away from doing any kind of means, violent, whether it is on a mental level or on a physical level. So we or the conditioned soul engages in that. And the chariot is the body here. And then the horses, weapons, commanders are all connected to the senses, mind, life as the bodily mechanisms, etc. So the message is the soul, when controlled by the passion and ignorance, misuses the body and senses for exploitation instead of service. So this is something we see every day in all kind of media. One of the most important thing considered to be pursued by all people in the world today is having good physical shape. Everybody is concerned with the shape of the body, the softness of the skin, and then a lot of building the body, etc., etc. So the entire focus is on a bodily platform, and then this puts us all in more and more conditioning, and then in a way, since we are continuously going through this sensual enjoyment, it is misusing the body. Like as we are all told by the Vaishnavas, Srila Prabhupada, etc., the only purpose of us getting this material body or the human body is to render service to the Supreme Lord. But unfortunately, completely forgetting this, we engage, or the conditions all engages in the material enjoyment only. So the body is meant for bhakti or to do service. Bhakti is defined by Srila Prabhupada as devotional service and not for just bhoga or enjoyment. So from companionship to exploitation. So here in this previous chapter, when the chapter was beginning, it looked like a story in the material world, like a romantic story in this material world, where everything looks very, very beautiful. How he comes to this nine-gated fort, and then he sees a beautiful woman, gets attracted, etc., etc. So in the beginning, it looks more like subtle or more like attractive or romantic in nature. But here, once we go ahead into the next chapter, it's very easy to understand. Or through this story, further, we are told that attachment to this material body is actually not love. Whether one is attached to one's own body or one is attached to somebody else's body in the form of opposite gender, it is actually not love, but it is only lust. Material affection quickly turns into selfishness, because it is very much connected to lust only, that we understand here. So when our purpose becomes only enjoyment, and then we try to use everything else around us for our pleasure. So even human beings or animals or anything else, whatever we see in this material world, we think that it is all given for our own pleasure, and we try to use it for our own pleasure again and again. So few understanding or takeaway from here is material love without Krishna easily becomes exploitation. So I think when we look into the world, it is not at all difficult. And in the earlier days, many years back, people were at least ashamed to talk very openly about it, that we should exploit others. But in today's world, it's very easy to see that there is no inhibition for people to say that everything is given for my enjoyment, and one who utilizes it maximum is the person who is succeeding. So contrary to this, as we know, with his extreme mercy, Srila Prabhupada had a totally opposite approach to this. He traveled across the world only because of mercy towards the conditioned souls. And then he taught us that the purpose of existing in this material world is to render loving service to the Supreme Lord in the form of various services, taking responsibilities, and then uplift oneself and the people dependent on us to the material platform, and then also by preaching to others about Krishna consciousness. So this message has been given through the life of our Acharya Srila Prabhupada. So further, we understand how passion turns into violence. Once we are more and more passionate into this material world. So here a few important points which are coming up in the chapter are: the more we are entangled into the material life, the desire to enjoy increases more and more and more. And the moment we get opportunities to satisfy our senses more, naturally pride arises, because we falsely start believing that we have got some power, and then that power leads to pride. And this is also not so difficult to understand. Once we are deluded by pride, and then loss of discrimination comes. So we don't understand at all what is right and what is wrong, and then we end up doing many activities which are violent and dangerous in nature. And once you go through this many times, and ultimately we end up completely tired. So fatigue follows, and finally we think that everything is empty and this world is so useless. That's the way generally most of the conditioned souls travel in this material world. And then once somebody is completely tired, we feel empty, we are tired of all the activities in the world, then unfortunately the material intelligence tells that, okay, you go and take rest and then enjoy. In the corporate world and all, there is a typical wording now. What they say is work hard for 5 days and enjoy for 2 days. And this is all kind of enjoyment, whether it is through various kind of intoxication, whether in the comfort of the opposite gender. These are all very openly accepted today, and that is the only way to kind of give rest to the body, to the mind, and then you again come back into the same world of pride, desire, violence, etc. You continue the same journey without no thinking at all about possibilities of spiritual engagement. So, like already mentioned, generally we all think how we enjoy. So I will enjoy, and the reality becomes that I have become servant of my senses. So sense gratification never liberates, but it only deepens the bondage. So through this story, Narada Muni is trying to give us a message that okay, we can all enjoy our senses more and more and more, but unfortunately, it will only give us or put us into bigger and bigger bondage. And this has been the message Srila Prabhupada giving in various ways. So the materially connected soul tries to engage the material energy in various ways, but ultimately it only gets more and more entangled, and it becomes more and more difficult to come out. So, some slokas we'll look at here. So, in this chapter, the fifth sloka talks about Aswarim Vrittam Asritya Ghoratma Niranugraha Nyahan Nistair Vaner Vaneshu Vanagocharan. So, at that time, King Puranjana was very much influenced by demonic propensities. Because of this, his heart became very hard and merciless. And with sharp arrows, he killed many innocent animals in the forest, taking no consideration. So, since he is deluded completely, he is least bothered for any living being around, like we see in the world, how we are killing animals, how we are utilizing all the energy around us for one's own benefit. So the same is mentioned here. So hard-heartedness, comes or moves us towards demonic nature. King Puranjana, influenced by these propensities or demonic nature, became more and more hard-hearted, and he mercilessly goes ahead and kills many animals. So here, what we understand is once we are covered by Rajoguna or Tamoguna, compassion will naturally disappear very fast. Enjoyment becomes more and more important. Dharma is completely forgotten. In the world, we can know nobody is even understanding what is dharma. And one forgets that every living being is Krishna's part and parcel. So that's the biggest delusion which happens. We completely forget about the Supreme Lord, and then we only think about oneself. So for us, what we could take away from this shloka or this particular rendering is we must be vigilant against hardening of heart. So this I was reflecting on myself when I work in an organization. The pursuit is to bring in businesses and many things, and unknowingly, the moment we are outside the Krishna consciousness umbrella, then naturally when we look back or reflect, we can see that our heart becomes more and more hardened. We are not bothered. We see find fault with everything around, etc., etc. So bhakti means we become more and more soft in our heart. We will show more compassion to all living beings around us. We cannot discriminate whether they are devotees or not, and we become more humble in front of everybody, and then more non-violent in consciousness. So one biggest challenge we all face is, although we don't do any violence on a physical level, many times we become violent internally on a mental level, especially when we work in organizations. We have many reasons to get angry with people around, etc. Although we are very smart because we don't show these things, when I reflect myself. But the nature of violence is still present inside. So the question we can all ask is, through my devotional service or with the help of association or the pursuit of our devotional service, am I become more merciful towards everybody? And Prabhupada taught us that the easiest way to become more and more merciful is to preach. So if you are able to talk about Krishna to people around us, wherever possible, then that is the most merciful activity any of us could do. So if you are able to do this, or if you are able to reflect upon us and then see whether we are moving in this direction, that will be the biggest help for all of us with the help of the story of King Puranjana. So further looking into the essence from this particular verse, so a person who is acting in a very whimsical way under all this delusion like prestige and becomes completely entangled in this material world or in the three modes of nature. Spiritual life requires guidance from seniors or from a guru. And it is not about I will do what I feel. So this is one most important learning we got from the teachings from Srila Prabhupada. Generally, the material world teaches us, do go ahead and do what you want to do. So it is not at all about that. And it is not about my truth. The truth cannot be concocted to my convenience, but it should be the real truth of the Supreme Lord, or as guided by our acharyas. And it's all not about my way, but it is about focusing on Guru, Shastras, and Sadhus. That is the only way to come out of the delusion. So this is very relevant today because we can understand, in the world, as you already said, independence is glorified in a big way. Today we are talking about the independence at a minute level. At least in the earlier days, as I was mentioning, many cases, at least when a person is talking about oneself, he was talking about the family. But today that has further gone to a individual level, and the independence at that level is glorified everywhere. Discipline is completely ignored. The discipline in the material world is only the pursuit of making more money and more comfort. The discipline, simple disciplines like rising early in the morning, going to bed on time, not involving with unnecessary activities all the time, etc., is completely forgotten and discarded today. And then, in that sense, discipline has become an absolute zero in this material world. And then another shocking aspect is authority is rejected, even on a material plane. There were very simple things existed in the world, like respecting one's own teacher. Probably many of us came from a background where we studied in village schools or wherever we have studied. The teachers were always taken as a big authority, and they were respected even after one grows up. I remember when in the villages there used to be many people who are history sheeters, etc., who will be making noises, etc. But once a teacher who he taught him in even in the primary schools, if he happens to appear, the person used to feel immediately embarrassed, and then he will show a lot of respect. So respect towards authority was a part of our life, at least to some extent in the early days. But today we can see this is completely forgotten, where everything has become a transactional nature. So generally people say this also, in a school, if children is put, they believe that we are paying to the school, then, why should there be any respect? I should get what I want. So rejection of authority, even on a material level, on a material platform, we can see today very clearly. And scriptural regulation is seen as a restriction. So scriptures mention many things. When we can see it very easily when we go into the pursuit of preaching, talking to people. Everyone is afraid about any kind of regulation. Very simple things like I mentioned, getting up early in the morning, or ensuring that we take a bath in the morning at the right time, etc. These are all very difficult for people because these are all seen as a restriction for independence on a minute platform. So, and generally they are rejected. So freedom without the understanding from all this is what nothing but freedom without obedience to Krishna becomes nothing but slavery to Maya. Like Prabhupada has also always mentioned, either you will serve Krishna directly, or you will serve Krishna indirectly by serving Maya, because Maya is also an energy of the Lord. And either you serve Krishna directly along with the devotees and enjoy, or you serve Maya continuously and suffer. Both the options we have. So this is in a way understood through this particular verse. So I'll continue. One more sloka is sloka number 8. So here it is mentioned, Anyatha karma kurvano manaruto nibadhyate guna pravaha patito nashta prajno pajadhyata. So here it is mentioned, a person who acts whimsically falls down to false prestige. Thus he becomes involved in the laws of nature, which are composed of the three qualities: goodness, passion, and ignorance. In this way, a living entity becomes devoid of his real intelligence and becomes perpetually lost in the cycle of birth and death. Thus, he goes up and down from a microbe in stool to a high position in the Brahmaloka planet. So this material life, since we are whimsical in nature, and since we are in the control of the false prestige and many other entanglements in this material world, so we fall into this life of repeated birth and death, which is nothing but the cycle of this material existence. So spiritual life requires guidance, as we already saw, and we saw these activities like not I will do what I feel or my truth, etc., but focus on Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. Freedom without opinions is nothing, which we saw in the previous slide. So similarly, we have this sloka in Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna is saying, Abrahma bhunal loka punaravartino arjuna mam upatyedu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. So from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But once one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So Bhagavad Gita also teaches us the same principle, that without consciousness toward the Lord, we will only continue in this material world in many, many forms of body, and then suffer, although generally we think that we are enjoying. That is understood through this particular sloka. One more important sloka which is mentioned here is the last sloka here. Tanme prasidata suhurda kritya kilpishai svairam gatasya mrigayam vivasanudasya ka devaram vashagatam kusumasta vega vishrata pashanam usati na bhajate krite. So here it's mentioned, my dear queen. So here Puranjana is talking to the intelligence. Due to my sinful desires, I went to the forest to hunt without asking you. Therefore, I must admit that I have offended you. Nonetheless, thinking of me as your most intimate subordinate, you should still be very much pleased with me. Factually, I am very much bereaved, but being pierced by the arrow of Cupid, I am feeling lusty. But where is the beautiful woman who would give up her lusty husband and refuse to unite with him? So here, conditioned soul is using the material intelligence to kind of come to the or kind of convincing oneself that now I have gone ahead and did many, many activities. Now I have got completely tired because of this. Rather than understanding anything spiritually, this all in a way, because of the conditioning, convincing, using the material intelligence, that one need to enjoy more in Cupid and connection with the opposite gender. So here, what we understand is regret without purification is no transformation. Or in a way, the other way, if we see, without the association or devotees or connection to the Lord, the material intelligence is actually of no use. So Puranjana here, in a way, admits that I have offended, I went independently, I acted sinfully, etc. But even in repentance, he remains pierced by Cupid. So even though he is in a way materially repenting, that is of no use in a way, So one may feel bad after doing many, many activities which is understood to be sinful. But since the consciousness is not at all purified, all the efforts still remain on a very mental platform, and there is no real dependence, or there is no spiritual understanding. So the entanglement with the material energy still continues. So some of the points we could understand here for our devotional life is there is a big difference between material regret and genuine dependence leading to surrender. Like we see in the lives of devotees, devotees are together and enjoying their life in a totally different way through the activities of devotion services, which are chanting, hearing, sadhana service, and also association. So, in a way, what we understand is the only way to come out of this material entanglement is be in the association of devotees, or try to satisfy the Lord through service and various other activities prescribed by our acharyas. Here there is a story to understand how it happens in an opposite platform. This is a story we all know, we have been hearing all the time about Lord Krishna and his deliverance of Putana. So in this chapter, we saw that there is so much of hard-heartedness, there is so much of violence, etc. But Krishna, being the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord of Passion, he showed to us through the pastime of Putana how even in the situation where it is completely hostile, how he with so much of mercy provided liberation to such an activity. So we all have heard about this particular sloka where he says, Ahobakiyam Stanagaлагూడం Jighasayapayayadapyasattvi. So this particular sloka very beautifully says, who to with whom or to whom I can go and take shelter other than Lord Krishna, who in spite of a demon who came in the form of a beautiful lady wanted to kill the Lord, but in spite of this mentality of that personality, he gave a liberation to her. So that kind of a personality is our Supreme Lord. So the sloka says, where shall I go else other than to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord? So Putana, as we all know, as a story here or the pastime, Putana came, of course, with the intention to kill Krishna, and she had applied poison to her breast and wanted to feed Krishna and kill him. But here, while he was sucking, he did not only took the poison but also the life of Putana, and then awarded her the position of a mother of the Lord himself. So that is the mercy. Still, because she approached him in a motherly way, he granted her liberation. So what we see here is Krishna sees his lightest offering. So whatever we are offering to Krishna, he is immediately seeing the positive side of it, and then he is awarding whatever benefit or compassion to that person who is approaching. Even though a demon came and then got in touch with the Lord, because of the extreme merciful form of the Lord, she became purified immediately. So here we can see Puranjana is killing in this story many animals and everything around, and then because he is completely deluded by material energy, he is continuing in this pursuit. However, this Supreme Lord himself, through his merciful nature, on the contrary, is liberating even a person who is completely deluded in the material world, and then purifies. So this we see from the life and pastimes of Lord Krishna when he was in the material world. So another beautiful story we have we all know about is the lifting of the Govardhan hill, and we know that Indra became proud and angry. He even tried to destroy Vrindavan and the devotees, and then Krishna protected all of them by lifting the Govardhana hill. And what we understand here is material power becomes destructive when guided by pride. Even though Indra is a devotee of the Lord, still his mentality is mixed in nature, and even in such a situation, the focus shifts to enjoying oneself or satisfying one's own pride, that we understand. And in all the situations, we can see that the protector is only the Lord. There is nobody else who can protect. Even the demigods, although they are very powerful, they don't have the capability to protect anybody. And devotees are safe only under the shelter of the Lord. So here, when we connect this to this particular chapter, Puranjana is going into the forest with many weapons. He had a lot of pride inside. He wanted to do many things on an independent platform, etc. But the residents of Indravana were opposite. Even in the midst of the biggest problems, they ran to Krishna. I mean, they could have thought about many other things, or they could have disbelieved Krishna and then tried to satisfy Indra in this case. But they were so much surrendered, and they very much knew that the only shelter is the Lord, and then they ran back to the lotus feet of Lord. So the soul is safe not by control but by surrender. This is what we understand here. Surrender is the only way. The moment we think that we are able to, control anything around us, that is a false understanding. But the moment we surrender to the Lord or the senior devotees, we are immediately under the shelter. We also know the story of this hunter called Mrigari, who was a very cruel hunter. He was into the forest, and then he was killing many animals in a halfway. He was not killing them properly. You just use the arrow, pierce them, and then leave it. And he enjoyed the scene of them suffering like anything. And this was seen by Narad Muni, and he took a lot of mercy on him, and he instructed him to stop this. And then he taught him how it is entangling him in this material consciousness, and how he will be punished by the law of the nature. So here also we see, in this story of King Puranjana about killing of animals, although it's an allegory. So in the Mrigari story also, even the cruel-hearted can become saintly through sadhu sangha. So what we learn here is, through our one's own pursuit of material efforts, we will never be able to come out of our entanglement or the suffering. But when we are associating with the devotees, immediately we get relief. And here Mrigari completely accepted the guidance of Narad Muni, and he became a very, very devotional person very, very quickly, in no matter of time. So the solution to hard-heartedness is not morally polishing us, because this moral polishing is an effort which we see around the world all the time, but that will not help us to reduce our hard-heartedness or come more into softness of the heart. That is only possible with the association of devotees. I just wanted, since we are celebrating Sri Ram Navami, as we all know, in the last 1 or 2 days, and the celebration is continuing today, tomorrow also in many places. So through the life of Lord Ramchandra, he has given us this beautiful message of love and compassion everywhere. In all different stages of his present this material world, whether all the four brothers were born at that point in time, how they could send or bring the consciousness of the entire country where they were present to very higher level, because they were loved by the mothers, the father, not only by them, but all the praja of that particular country. So the air was only filled with the feelings of love. And further, we could see that in their life, when they grew up and became youngsters, all the four brothers, they precipitated extreme form of love for each other. And then also the same love was spread to the whole people of the country where they lived. And so in this particular age of their life also, the biggest message they spread across was the message of love. The same thing is applicable in this relationship between Mother Kausalya and Lord Rama. The extreme affection we could see in through the many verses of Ramayana. And what to speak about the relationship between Lord Rama and his father Dasharatha. And we all know that while even Dasharatha was leaving his body, he was only thinking about Lord Ram. Although in the story it may appear to be a sad scene, but fortunately for him, he was only reciting the name of Lord Rama and leaving his body, and of course attaining the feet of the Supreme Lord. So here also we see the message of love. And further, when Lord Ram marries Mother Sita, and the relationship between Lord Rama and Sita Mother became the most beautiful relationship probably we could see in this whole world. How they lived for each other with extreme amount of love and respect for each other. So Lord has shown through his own very life how this material world can be transcended through the power of extreme love and respect for each other. And finally, what to speak about the relationship between Lord Rama and Sri Hanumanji, how Lord Hanuman showed the height of service mentality towards the Lord, and how the Lord reciprocated with equal amount of mercilessness. So the life and teachings of Sri Ram and his devotees is only about surrender and love. However, we see through the life of Puranjana, it is just the opposite, a materially conscious soul trying to enjoy and then getting more and more entangled. So this message of Sri Ramnami we could take as a appropriate message to counter the material sufferings. Srila Prabhupada, through his life, also showed the same mercy. Not only Lord is showing mercy, but all the pure devotees of the Lord is also showing the same mercy. Human life, he taught us that human life is not meant for unrestricted enjoyment in senses. And then he also showed how important it is to bring our consciousness from a lower plane to higher plane. Human life is meant for self-realization. This is a message given by Srila Prabhupada in a very direct way. And Vedic regulation is meant to elevate, not indulge. So in the Vedas, there are many, many teachings, also in the Karma Kanda sections. But Prabhupada taught us that the purpose ultimately is not to, indulge ourselves in the material world, but it is to elevate us by purifying ourselves and bringing up ourselves out of the lower tendencies. So attraction to the opposite gender, every materially entangled person or material in this material life, it's a reality. But if we go in this pursuit more and more, the knot of this material life becomes more and more tight on us. That is the other beautiful teaching by Srila Prabhupada. So the chapter shows how all kind of hard work in this material life is completely useless and it will not help us. Ultimately, we only go to sensual enjoyment. So, Srila Prabhupada is not condemning any of these, material activities only on a sentimental platform, but through many, many teachings taken directly from a philosophical point of view or from the Shastras, he has taught that the only ways to evolve is coming into spiritual consciousness. This all suffers by misidentification. So the biggest problem, as we all know, is identifying with our own body. And the moment we understand so I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, then we are out of this material entanglement. So these are the understandings through the life of Srila Prabhupada and his teachings. Quickly, we're looking at the lessons we could take from the story of Puranjana. So Puranjana, as we know, is the materially entangled soul with the enjoying mentality. The city is nothing but the body itself, which is mentioned. Queen, as we saw, is the material intelligence. And then the forest is the external enjoyment one is getting into. The hunting activity is doing is nothing but the false enjoyship of the materially entangled soul, trying to exploit the world. So what Acharyas repeatedly taught us is forgetfulness of Krishna is a root disease, nothing else. And therefore remembrance of Krishna is the only cure. So the moment we are able to remember the Lord through the association of devotees or devotional service, we are out of this pain of the material world. So this is also, as we understand, very much applicable to this world where we are living today. So this chapter is not just about a story of hunting and some king, etc., but it's all about our very life today. We know that even within our devotional life or devotional families, it has become very difficult to control the presence of internet, social media, etc., and then many ambitions which are beyond spiritual activities are also in a way seems attractive to many of especially me, time to time. Entertainment, which are many times lustful in nature, then aggressive mentality, especially in the corporate and business environment, and then trying to dominate others, building up of ego, etc., and then ultimately using of people around us for our own purposes. So in the modern form, Puranjana is looking, in this way, like a typical successful person in the material world is very, very successful externally, but internally empty. At the end of the day, that person is only self-centered because of that alone, and then becomes completely empty internally. And spiritual focus is absolutely not there. And because of all these, that person is very much restless And then, so in a way, we can say that this particular chapter is diagnosing this modern world in a very, very, very essential, very, very beautiful way. And it will hopefully force us all of to reflect and then come out of this entanglement. So some of the quick lessons on a very practical sense is, like we already saw, we do not have the right to act independently out of the teachings by the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastras. And it's important to guard our mind before it becomes out of control and get into many other pursuits. Regulate desires before desires rule our life. So the desires are so strong, or the Maya is so strong, it is trying to rule us. But if our consciousness is more towards the Lord, we will be able to control us and save us. So one important thing is, again, do not mistake regret for purification. Many times in the material world we regret that we did this or that, but that is not helpful. Only way is to look for purification, which is through sincere sadhana. There is no other way. So a devotee should become compassionate, truthful, restrained in the activities, and increasingly merciful. And ultimately, taking the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord is the only way for us. So Puranjana in this story, we can see he's coming tired, and then because of all his indulgence, and learning from that, a devotee understand that for me the only way is the holy name, the hearing, then rendering service to the Supreme Lord, and then ultimately taking shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. There is no other way. So with this, I'll stop here. Whether I took more time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.